Every morning, before the noise of the world begins, there's a brief moment that belongs entirely to you. It's that quiet space between sleep and movement, the moment when your mind hasn't yet been flooded by notifications, responsibilities, or distractions. You choose to tell yourself in that window can completely alter the trajectory of your day. This isn't self-help jargon or some abstract motivational theory. It's neuroscience. Brain is highly suggestible in those first few minutes after waking. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision making and focus, is coming online. Your subconscious mind is still open and impressionable. What you say to yourself in that state becomes instruction. You begin your day with intention, with a statement of self-worth, direction, and gratitude. You're not just creating a positive mood, you're shaping the neural environment through which your thoughts, emotions, and actions will move for the next 16 hours. The mind works by association. If you start your day with, "I'm tired," or "I'm behind," your brain immediately begins scanning for evidence to support that belief. It's called confirmation bias, the tendency to notice what aligns with what you already believe. Conversely, when you start your day by saying, "I am capable," or "I'm building something meaningful today," your mind begins to orient itself toward behaviors, opportunities, and even people that reinforce that mindset. That's why the morning matters so much. It's the psychological foundation of your day. Think of it as calibrating your internal compass. Every pilot knows. If you're just 1 degree off at takeoff, you'll end up miles off course by the time you land. The same is true of your thoughts. 1 degree of negative self-talk early in the day compounds across hours, shaping choices, reactions, and focus. So when I say your morning mindset shapes your entire day, not poetic, it's neurological precision. But let's go deeper. There's also a biochemical layer here. When you wake up and immediately affirm something positive, something constructive, you begin to regulate the stress systems in your body. Cortisol, the hormone that spikes in the early hours, is meant to energize you. Yet, if you pair that natural cortisol rise with anxious or self-defeating thoughts, your body interprets it as threat, not readiness. Your heart rate quickens, focus narrows, and you move into a reactive mode. However, you couple that same cortisol surge with affirmations that communicate agency. I'm in control of my day. I can handle what comes. Your body reads that physiological activation as motivation, not anxiety. You shift from survival to creation. There's also a philosophical dimension to this. The Stoics often said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. In modern terms, this means that who you are is a reflection of what you habitually tell yourself. World will always present uncertainty, challenge, and noise. The only real power you have is the ability to decide how you'll interpret those things, what meaning you'll assign to them. That meaning begins with language. Words you say to yourself in the morning are not mere reflections of your mood. They're instructions to your mind about who you are and how you intend to show up in the world. This is why people who practice consistent morning affirmations often report subtle but powerful shifts over time, not just in confidence, but in attention and decision-making. They begin to act more in alignment with the version of themselves they describe each morning. If you tell yourself daily that you're someone who follows through, your brain starts looking for ways to validate that identity. You'll notice yourself finishing tasks you might have previously avoided. You'll catch yourself speaking more decisively. That's identity reinforcement, a concept supported by behavioral neuroscience and cognitive psychology. There's something almost sacred about those first words of the day. They're a declaration, not of what you have, but of what you choose to become. Even a simple phrase like, "Today, I move with purpose," when repeated daily with sincerity, becomes a neurocognitive anchor. It ties your actions to intention. It reminds you amid chaos that you are the one choosing the narrative, not the other way around. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't require hours of meditation or elaborate rituals. It begins with awareness. When you open your eyes in the morning, before reaching for your phone, take 10 seconds to direct your mind. 10 seconds of deliberate self-instruction can shift the tone of your entire day. You're setting a neural filter that determines how you perceive everything that follows. from your morning commute to the challenges at work. So, as you move into your day tomorrow, pay attention to that first moment. Ask yourself, am I reacting to the world, or am I programming my mind to create it? Because every day begins not with action, but with attention. The way you choose to think in the morning will determine what kind of person you become by nightfall. If you can master that, the discipline of guiding your first thoughts, you begin to master yourself. And once you master yourself, everything else starts to fall into place. Most people wake up and immediately start replaying yesterday. The arguments, the mistakes, the missed opportunities, all of it loops in the mind before the day even begins. It's an unconscious habit, but one that has a measurable impact on how you show up in the world. The human brain is wired to prioritize what's familiar, even if that familiarity comes from pain, regret, or self-doubt. It's called the negativity bias, a deeply ingrained evolutionary mechanism designed to keep us safe by anticipating danger. But in the modern world, that same bias traps us in mental patterns that no longer serve us. If you wake up every morning thinking about what went wrong, your brain begins to reinforce those neural circuits. It's like walking the same mental path every day. Eventually, it becomes a highway. The problem is that highway leads straight back into the past. And the past, no matter how much you analyze it, can't change. What you can change, what you have complete agency over, is the direction of your attention. That's where transformation begins. You start speaking to the future version of yourself instead of the past one. You initiate one of the most powerful psychological shifts possible. You begin to reorient your identity, because identity at its core isn't fixed. It's a story you tell yourself, reinforced by repetition and emotion. Neuroscientifically, when you affirm something about yourself, even something aspirational, you activate neural networks in the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex, both of which are involved in goal-directed behavior and emotional regulation. You are literally lighting up the parts of your brain that help you move toward what you desire, instead of staying stuck in what you fear. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore your past. The past has lessons, but those lessons are meant to inform your direction, define your identity. Think of it like using the rear view mirror while driving. You glance at it for awareness, but if you stare at it too long, you'll crash. Purpose of reflection is guidance, not imprisonment. Too many people let their yesterday dictate their tomorrow because they haven't learned how to consciously shift that inner dialogue. When you wake up and say, I am becoming more focused, or I'm building a stronger version of myself, your brain doesn't immediately reject it as false. Instead, begin searching for evidence, moments, decisions, micro actions that make that statement true. It's a psychological principle known as cognitive dissonance reduction. Your brain dislikes inconsistency, so when your words and behavior don't align, it adjusts your actions to match your beliefs. In essence, your affirmations become behavioral cues. You start living in accordance with the future you describe. This is where language becomes a form of self-engineering. Every sentence you repeat carries energy, not in a mystical sense, in a neural one. Words are stimuli. They shape emotional states, trigger hormonal responses, and direct attention. When you tell yourself, I'm broken, your nervous system responds as if that's a physical truth. When you tell yourself, I'm healing, it begins to look for ways to make that real through your choices, your posture, even your tone of voice. You start to embody the message you internalize. There's a psychological elegance in speaking to your future self. It implies movement, a belief that who you are is not final, that you are a work in progress, evolving through intention and repetition. And this isn't just motivational talk. Neuroscientific research supports the idea that visualizing and affirming your future self strengthens neural pathways associated with discipline, planning, and resilience. In other words, more clearly you can describe the person you're becoming, the more your brain helps you become that person. But it's not just about what you say. It's about how you say it. Affirmations without emotion are just words. Emotion gives them weight, embeds them deeper into your subconscious. When you speak to your future self with conviction, your brain responds as if the vision were already in motion. That's the essence of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change based on experience and focus. Every time you imagine yourself acting with strength, discipline, or compassion, you strengthen the circuits that make those qualities easier to access in real life. This is also where philosophy meets neuroscience. The ancient Stoics taught that we should focus on what we can control. Our judgments, our actions, our efforts. Speaking to your future self is an act of control. It's a declaration that while you can't rewrite yesterday, you can redefine tomorrow. You're not denying reality, you're redirecting it. You're saying, I acknowledge where I've been, but I'm more interested in where I'm going. That mindset creates psychological momentum. And momentum, once initiated, has a powerful way of sustaining itself over time. These small morning declarations start to reshape your identity. You stop identifying with failure and start identifying with growth. You stop seeing yourself as the result of your circumstances and start seeing yourself as the architect of them. It's not about pretending life is easy. It's about choosing to respond as someone capable. The more you practice this, the more you realize that the gap between who you are and who you want to be isn't made of time. It's made of repetition and belief. So when you wake up tomorrow, resist the pull of yesterday. Don't repeat the same mental script. Instead, speak to the version of you that's already on the way. The one who's calmer, stronger, more deliberate. Talk to that person as if they already exist because in a very real neurological sense, they do. You're just building the bridge to meet them. The truth is, change doesn't happen because of what you say once. It happens because of what you say and do consistently. You can read every book, watch every motivational video, or tell yourself powerful affirmations for a few days, but without repetition, it all fades back into noise. The brain learns through pattern and frequency. It's not the intensity of what you do occasionally that shapes you. It's the consistency of what you do daily. When we talk about morning affirmations, the words you tell yourself to set the tone for the day, it's easy to underestimate their impact because they feel small. That's how real change always begins, through subtle, repetitive acts that over time rewire the way you think, feel, and behave. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. And the key to making those new connections stick is consistency. Every time you repeat a thought or behavior, you're strengthening that circuit. It's like walking a path through tall grass. The first few times are difficult. The way is unclear. The more you walk it, the clearer and more natural that path becomes. So when you tell yourself something empowering every morning, I'm focused, I'm capable, I'm moving closer to my goals, it might feel unnatural at first, even forced. That's because the old neural pathways are still dominant. They've been rehearsed for years, sometimes decades. But with repetition, the new ones begin to take over. The unfamiliar becomes familiar. The internal resistance quiets down. What once felt like effort begins to feel like identity. This is the point where affirmations stop being something you say and start becoming something you live. The words evolve into beliefs, and the beliefs shape your actions. And it's that alignment between what you say, what you believe, and what you do that transforms your life. Psychologically, this principle is tied to the concept of cognitive congruence, the desire for internal consistency. Humans naturally want their actions to match their self-perception. If you repeatedly tell yourself, I'm disciplined, eventually you'll start acting in ways that confirm that belief, because not doing so creates tension in the mind. You close that gap through behavior, and that's how transformation sustains itself, not through a sudden surge of motivation, but through the steady rhythm of practice. Philosophically, this connects to an idea found in both Stoicism and Eastern thought that mastery is not a single act, but a habit formed through repetition and presence. Epictetus said, "We are what we repeatedly do." The Bhagavad Gita echoes this, that one's actions, when performed with consistency and detachment from outcome, shape the nature of the self. The science and the philosophy align perfectly here. Both remind us that change is not a moment of inspiration, it's a process of repetition. Now, the challenge is that consistency often feels boring. It lacks the emotional thrill of starting something new. The human brain craves novelty, so when the excitement fades, We interpret that as failure, as if we're doing something wrong. What's actually happening is that the brain is moving from the dopamine-driven excitement of beginning to the serotonin-based stability of mastery. The shift feels less stimulating. It's where depth and progress emerge. The goal is not to chase excitement, but to build structure. A rhythm so ingrained that it becomes second nature. Think about this, the same way physical muscles are built through progressive overload, small, consistent effort over time. Mental and emotional resilience is built the same way. Affirmations are like mental reps. Every time you repeat one, you strengthen the circuits associated with focus, self-belief, and emotional regulation. Skip the routine long enough, and the old patterns begin to resurface, just like muscles weaken when not used. Consistency isn't just discipline. It's self-maintenance. There's another dimension to this: emotional sincerity. Consistency doesn't mean mechanical repetition. It means showing up each morning with presence, with genuine intent. Brain can tell the difference between empty words and felt truth. When you connect emotionally with your affirmations, you activate the limbic system, the brain's emotional center, which enhances memory and retention. In other words, feeling what you say makes the neural imprint stronger. Over time, this practice becomes less about motivation and more about identity. You stop needing to psych yourself up every morning because the mindset you once had to consciously create now operates automatically. That's when you know you've rewired something deep. You've moved from intention to embodiment. And from that place, everything you do, how you speak, how you respond to stress, how you pursue your goals, begins to reflect the mindset you've built. The difference between people who talk about change and people who actually live it isn't intelligence, talent, or even opportunity. It's consistency. The willingness to do small, deliberate things every single day until the result becomes undeniable. You speak the same truth to yourself every morning. You're not trying to convince the world. You're training your nervous system to believe. You're creating a loop of reinforcement that eventually becomes who you are. And when that happens, the external world begins to shift too. Not because it suddenly changes, because you do. You start making different choices. You carry yourself differently. You attract what aligns with the identity you've practiced into existence. So remember, it's not about what you do once in a while. It's about what you do every morning, every day, without fail, especially on the days you don't feel like it. That's the real test. That's where transformation quietly begins to take root.